My name is Andrea DeHann. I'm the Outreach Coordinator for the College of Humanities and Social Sciences, and we welcome you today to our second installment of the Digital Takeout. This is the Alumni Lunch Series that has gone online, and while we sadly can't provide you with any free pizza today, we hope you have grabbed a snack and you are ready to enjoy some useful information from another one of our amazing alumni. And today in particular, we're going to be talking to Samuel Jaggi of MarketStar. Sam graduated from Utah State University in 2014 with a BA in history and has spent the last year working at MarketStar as a recruiter in the talent acquisition department. His primary focus is working with account managers and sales representatives in their Ogden and Salt Lake offices. He has also specialized in field recruiting for MarketStar by recruiting sales professionals to represent their clients in various reseller locations. Welcome, Sam.
Thank you for having me on, Andrea. Appreciate it. All right, so I am going to quickly share my screen with everyone. And I just have a couple slides that I wanted to go over. So as Andrea mentioned, my name is Sam Jaggi. I am a recruiter with MarketStar, and I've been there for just over a year. Actually hit my year mark last week, so always grateful to have another year of employment. Also, as mentioned, I am a history major with USU. Spent my time there, absolutely loved my time with USU and with the history department. I specifically focused in on the classics, so a lot of the ancient Roman Greek time. Also was a religious studies minor, so spent a lot of time in kind of delving into the religious aspect of history. It's kind of a funny story how I ended up working as a recruiter. So going through school, the reason why I was doing history is I wanted to become a history professor, which is a very different path than what I ended up taking. A little bit about my background and just kind of how I got to that point. So my junior year of college, I ended up meeting my lovely wife, and we've been married now for 7 years. In between junior and senior year, I ended up getting married, and that changed a lot of the direction that I was going with my own schooling and career projections. My senior year of college, in working with the history department, I should say my wife was accepted into Weber State's nursing program. And so after I graduated, I had to push pause on doing any kind of schooling so that my wife could go through. We couldn't afford to do both at the same time. So I found myself having to enter the workforce and had to figure out what to do with a couple of years of time while my wife was going through school. I'll be honest, it was kind of a tough time. When I first came out of school, didn't have a lot of direction of where I wanted to go, just because I had everything set up to becoming a history major and kind of moving along that fairly quickly and going into grad school. And so I had to end up switching gears a little bit. While I was in school, I was also working as a front-end supervisor part-time at a Macy's grocery store out there in Logan. And so I didn't have a ton of relevant skills going into the business world, and I kind of just took the first job that came along. It was a sales rep for a company called Live Commercial Advertising, and it was absolutely terrible. I hated it. It was not for me. It was sales in like a Costco and Sam's Clubs, and we were those annoying people that would come up and try to sell random product to people. And it just was not for me, but I needed a job coming out of school. My wife and I had moved from Logan up to Kaysville, so I needed something in the area and kind of took the first thing that came. But it ended up kind of setting me up for my future, and I'm really glad that I did it. While I was working at Live Commercial Advertising, I was just exploring other job opportunities. I knew sales wasn't necessarily what I wanted to be in. I didn't have any kind of passion for it at all. And I came across a company, they're called Prince and Perlson, and they're a staffing agency. I ended up getting in contact with them and wanted to just kind of explore some options with them. They try to help people like myself who are in need of getting placed into jobs, and they ended up having this contract with Goldman Sachs, which was very different for me. I'd never really been involved in that kind of work or in that environment at all, but went in for the interview. It went really well. One thing that my history degree and just being a CHaSS student really prepared me for was the analytical mindset that it takes to be in business. And I did well in the interview and they took me on. I had a 6-month contract with Goldman Sachs, and they told me that after 6 months, if they liked me, they would extend my contract for another 4 months. And during that time, I could apply for full-time positions with them. At the end of 6 months, I did really well. They liked me. They wanted me to stick around, so they extended my contract, like they said, and I started exploring some options within Goldman Sachs and got picked up on a team working with their onboarding team. So Goldman Sachs, they have thousands and thousands of different clients that they work with. And my job was to analyze these different clients and try to see if they were involved in anything fishy. I did a lot of their onboarding and worked with a lot of regulatory industries like the SEC and FINRA and different industries like that, or regulatory companies like that, to try to find what I could on these different companies. Some days I'd be there 13, 14, 15 hours a day, and it just wasn't quite the environment that I wanted. And so I ended up looking for some new opportunities. But I will say that Goldman Sachs really helped me springboard my business career, and it really made me see that, I could do this. I could be successful in business. And so from there, my brother was working at a company called Zag, and they are a screen protector company, and they do other mobile accessories. And he knew of an opportunity at Zag for a client contract analyst. And with my experience that I had at Goldman Sachs, it was a fairly easy transition. And so I ended up working in the accounting department at Zag, and a lot of what my role boiled down to is I was trying to find, from an accounting perspective, what discounts we needed to honor for our different clients that we worked with, and what essentially it was a brand new role. So it was really just discovering what contracts we had, making sure that we were honoring all of the different discounts and that we were budgeting out everything that we needed. And it was a fun job. About 6 months in, it really became apparent that I was good at it, but I didn't have a passion for it. And so it really made me stop and reflect what I wanted to do with business. And so I really just started looking back at my time at Macy's, at the grocery store there, looking back at what I loved about being a university student, made me look back at the different aspects of the sales job that I had working at Goldman, working at Zag. And it really boiled down to kind of two career paths for me. One was becoming a project manager, just with my analytical mindset, and what my history degree taught me was just really how to analyze information and data and come up with the best conclusions. And so that was kind of a natural fit. The other avenue that I was exploring was human resources. As a supervisor at Macy's, I got to work a lot with kind of the hiring process and new employees who are coming on board. And I really loved being there to help people progress their careers. And I remember as a history student, my senior year, last semester, when I knew that I needed to push pause on everything, I went to a campus recruiting fair, and I didn't really get looked at a lot, being a history student, going to talk with these different businesses. And it was really frustrating to me. And I remember looking back at that when I was working at Zag and thinking, I want to change that for other people. I want to help CHaSS students and like the non-traditional business students really become contributing members of society, and to help them see that there is a lot of value that they can provide and help businesses see that. And so I thought recruiting might be a really good avenue for me to explore. And so working at Zag, I kind of explored those two different pathways and decided that I really wanted to get into human resources and just really be there to help people, and thought recruiting would be a really good experience. I didn't have any experience in recruiting or HR really, and so I knew that I needed to do something else to kind of bolster my resume so that I could get looked at for some opportunities. And so I put out some applications for some different master's programs for human resource management, and ended up going with Colorado State University, and I started that in 2017. It was strictly online, so it really worked with my full-time work schedule. At that time, I had a 6-month-old son and working full-time. My wife was working, and so just having the flexibility of 100% online school was the way that I needed to go. And about 6 months into that program, I started working with Zag's human resource director, and just kind of let him know this is the direction I wanted to go. They didn't have any current openings for recruiting positions or just HR positions in general, but he worked out, he allowed me to work with him on some different projects while still maintaining my full-time job in the accounting department. And I had really good bosses that were flexible with that, and they let me help out kind of doing both jobs. And so I did a little bit of recruiting with Zag for about another 6 months. And then about a year ago, when I was really getting serious about making a transition into HR, I came across the opportunity of working with MarketStar, and just those different things of, doing a little bit of recruiting with Zag and working on my master's in human resource management, and just setting myself up for those different opportunities allowed me to get into the opportunity of working with MarketStar. And I've been a recruiter with them ever since. And as Andrea mentioned, I specifically work with sales professionals within the MarketStar world. Just a little bit about MarketStar, just so you guys kind of have a background here. Kind of a shameless plug for MarketStar as well, as we're a third-party marketing agency. We're based out of Ogden, Utah. That's where our headquarters is at. We also have an office in Salt Lake. They haven't made too many announcements about it yet, but we're actually getting an office up in Logan that we're really excited about. That should be coming through sometime in the next year or two. So that's going to really enhance our relationship with Utah State. We're really excited about that. Hopefully we'll have a little bit more details being announced within the next 6 months to the next year about that. But we specifically, as a third-party marketing agency, we provide sales as a service. We get to partner with some really great brands like Pinterest, Google, Facebook, Samsung. Currently, I'm working on a really big project with Microsoft Surface. They're doing an expansion to their team here in Ogden. Dropbox, HP, Intel, you name it. A lot of those big brands, we work with them. And as a MarketStar employee, everything comes from MarketStar, your paychecks, your bonuses, the insurance. We have healthcare coverage, 401k match, tuition reimbursements. We have some really great benefits that we offer to our employees at MarketStar. But when you're on the phone with these different businesses, you're there as a representative of Pinterest or Dropbox, and these companies that you're talking to, they have no idea that you're a MarketStar employee. And so, one, it's a really great resume boost. You can put on your resume that you're a Pinterest employee with MarketStar. You can put that you're a Microsoft employee with MarketStar, and it's a great resume boost. And just really good opportunities. Some of it's more of your traditional sales where you're calling up companies on behalf of Pinterest and you're selling digital advertisement space for companies to do their ads. Some of them are a little bit more untraditional where it's more of like an account manager type of relationship, and you're working with people who already have HP as their go-to laptops or hardware for their companies, and you're just trying to help them expand what they're already doing. So like I said, I've been doing that for about a year. When I first started with MarketStar, I really focused more on entry-level sales jobs. So I was working with a lot of people coming out of high school, coming out of college, and I love that, just to really be able to help people make that first step in building a career. not to toot my own horn too much, but I got really good at recruiting really quick. And they had me start to specialize in some of our more technical roles. So now I'm dealing a lot more with sales professionals who have been in the business for maybe 5 to 10 years. They already have a sales background, they already have a tech background. And as mentioned, I deal a lot with with candidates out on the East Coast and companies out on the East Coast, some in Arizona, California. Those are some of our other major areas. But I still get to help out here in Ogden, in Salt Lake. Every now and then I get a few entry-level jobs where I get to work with students again and really help them out, and I love that aspect of it. But that's a little bit about me, guys. Very happy to be here on this call with you and love to take any questions that you have. Here's my contact information. We can reshare this again later on, but I would love to just be able to stay in touch with people. Look me up on LinkedIn. Let's connect. Here's my contact information. Shoot me a text. Give me an email. If you're wanting to get into kind of more of the sales aspect of or marketing aspect of business, let's chat. If you're just looking for resume advice or career advice, I'd love to be able to help out with that as well. Coming out of college, I didn't feel like I had that much support, and that wasn't necessarily anything against USU. That was kind of my own stubbornness. I didn't take advantage of the opportunities that were available, and I just want to make sure that you guys do and that you take advantage of having somebody who's gone through that process and can be there to help you guys out.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Sam. I'm going to start us off, I guess, with the first question here, and this is a little bit more towards like your recruiting role. First off, like right now with the COVID-19 and everyone kind of making changes, what do you see? What's your campus recruiting efforts like? Are you doing more virtual sessions and interviews, or are you like still inviting people on site, or has there been sort of a reduction of recruiting efforts? Tell me what it's like.
Yeah, you bet. Great question. So this pandemic has definitely caught everybody off guard a little bit. MarketStar has been more on the conservative end. We are 100% working from home. Every employee is now working from home right now. We started that mid-March and have been doing that ever since. So nobody in office, so not bringing people in for on-site interviews or anything like that. It's all done virtually. A lot of Zoom conference interviews and phone calls and things like that. As far as our campus recruiting goes, still trying to do things like today where we're reaching out to students, want to make sure that we're still helping people out. We actually have a few kind of webinar series coming up here in the summer for students as well as just people who are wanting to get into business and want to explore MarketStar. So keep an eye out for some of that. But everything right now is 100% remote. As far as our recruiting efforts, it has slowed down a little bit. I know personally I've gone from, I typically had about 25 to 30 open jobs that I was working on. Now I'm about 15, and that's a little bit more of the high end for our recruiters right now, but we are still actively hiring. A lot of the clients that we work with have just wanted to push pause on backfilling roles or starting new programs until maybe a month or two down the road. We've got a lot of really great projects coming up, but they're wanting to wait till everybody's back in office before getting going on that. But we are still doing quite a bit of recruiting and helping people out still.
And Sam, have you seen an increased demand for certain kinds of positions since the pandemic started? And conversely, have you seen a decrease in demand for other types of positions?
Yeah, great question. So specifically, I'll kind of share more my industry. How our industry works out in kind of the third-party marketing agency world is we have what we call revenue generating and non-revenue generating positions. The non-revenue generating positions is kind of similar to what I do. It's HR positions, it's accounting, it's operations. A lot of those positions have been put on hold during this pandemic. So we're not doing a lot of backfilling or hiring new positions at this time. And I've seen that just kind of across the board in our industry. A lot of companies are still hiring their revenue generating roles. So sales roles, engineers, product engineers, those different type of positions are still being filled and wanting those to come through. I will say just kind of in general, I've seen more of an uptick in more tech-related roles. As you can imagine, with a lot of the general workforce working from home across the U.S., companies like Zoom or WebEx or different companies like that have really taken advantage of it. And I know specifically at MarketStar, some of the companies that we represent that are similar to those companies have seen a really good boom in their business. And so we're seeing more technical people needed for those type of roles in those companies.
Okay, the next question I have is a little bit more on just with your recruiting, basically what is one of your recruiting success stories? Like what was a candidate that you worked with? How did you find them, and kind of what made them stand out when you were recruiting them?
Yeah, I love this question. So I love to talk recruiting. I love to talk people. I thought of a couple different stories. One of them kind of hits a little bit closer home. It was actually a neighbor of mine who just lives down the road. Found out that he had lost his job or was going to be losing his job. It was about 6 months ago. The company he was working for just wanted to centralize his position. He was a sales manager for one of the tech companies back on the West Coast. And they offered to allow him to move out to California and retain his job. He had kids in high school and he didn't want to uproot his family. And so, he put in an application and we started working with him to try to find something that would work out. And it felt like we just kept having bad luck and bad timing. We would put him in for a role, but they already had somebody in mind for a sales manager position. Or maybe he just didn't quite have the skill set that they were looking for another one. And, I kept telling him, his name's Carl, I kept telling him, I was like, Carl, I know that you'll be a good fit here. Just trust me. Let's work on it. We'll find you something. And about a month into kind of our process together, found him an opportunity came open that was actually one of the better paying manager jobs, and working with one of the directors that I really like, who really supports her managers and really helps them grow their careers, and ended up being a great fit. And he ended up getting hired for that position. About 2 months later, I was talking with his director, and she had another position open up that was very similar. And she looked at me and said, Sam, I want you to find another Carl. This guy was awesome. I know he's a little bit quirky, a little socially, a little bit quirky, but his skill set's there, his passion's there, his knowledge is there. Find me one more of those guys. And so I just love those kind of stories of helping people improve their current situations and getting them into something that's going to work even better for them.
Excellent. And Sam, you've kind of started to touch on this, but what advice would you give to students who are entering the job market right now? And it is an uncertain time. And as you've talked about, there's some companies who are seeing, robust need for more workers and others that aren't. And maybe in answering this question in terms of advice, since you're speaking, to the College of Humanities and Social Sciences, maybe specifically thinking about how are there ways in which humanities majors can be preparing themselves for the job market right now if they do find themselves with downtime, or if it takes them longer, to find that first job? What are some things they can maybe do to make themselves a better candidate?
Yeah, I also love this question. So, just kind of going over my own background and history, there's a couple things that I think that we can all pull from it. The first thing that I was very proud that I did is that I wasn't afraid to start from the bottom. Coming out of college, I didn't have a lot of options. And so I kind of took the first thing that was around, because I knew I just needed I needed a start. I needed a company to give me a shot. And so I took that 6-month contract, which with Goldman Sachs, which a lot of people might be hesitant to. So don't be afraid to kind of start from the bottom. I know that the American dream is that coming out of college, you're going to have this great job lined up and that there's going to be, all these different opportunities, but it might not be the case. And so you just need to be kind of mentally prepared for that. Hopefully I'm wrong and that you guys all have these jobs that come up and that they're all going to work out great, but you can't be afraid to start from the bottom and start from scratch and work your way up and just, have something to prove. Like I said, with me, I knew that I just needed one shot. I just needed a company to give me a chance. And once I got that chance, I never looked back. The other piece of advice that I would give is to build your portfolio, build your resume. When I was a history student, I did things like I was a teacher's assistant for a few semesters. That helped me just better prepare myself for how to teach and how to explain, how to organize, how to work with, professors in the field that I wanted to go into. Obviously, it didn't end up panning out that I went into history, but just do things like that to help kind of set yourself up, build your portfolio, depending on what area of business you're going into, whether it's teaching or journalism or anything like that. There's all sorts of different certifications that you can get. Take advantage of those opportunities. Do things that are going to stand out on your resume to recruiters like myself. If I see somebody who has a tech degree at Utah State or some kind of degree like that, but then they've also taken some certifications to help them bolster their knowledge and resume, that stands out, and that puts them in my mind in the top 5 candidate category, whereas they might not be otherwise. And then the last thing I wish I would have done more is do more networking. Sometimes it's really about who you know. And I didn't take advantage of the different people that I knew as much as I should have. LinkedIn is a great tool to do that. There's other great platforms to really network with people. I'm on LinkedIn constantly with my job, and the ones that stand out to me are the ones that are reaching out. I get plenty of people who put in an application, but if they're reaching out to me on LinkedIn, they're trying to find good fits. They're following up with me constantly. That means a lot. And so definitely do things like that as well. Get into a network, find business professionals who are like-minded, who you are wanting to get into careers similar as them, and try to work with them on getting advice and be networking as much as possible.
Excellent. That is all great advice, Sam. We are going to turn things over in a moment to London for some Q&A from our listeners. Before we do that, Sam, I'm going to remind you to hand the reins back over to me, just so that at the end of our series today, I can share some slides with our listeners about some upcoming events. Again, if you've been listening to our conversation with Sam Jaggi this morning, if you have questions, you can put those in the Q&A section. We have several questions that we've received either through Q&A or through chat, and I'm going to let London take the reins and go through some of those for us.
Okay, hi everybody. The first question I'm going to ask you, Sam, is I know you talked highly about LinkedIn, and so one that we had come in from the chat was, will you let us know how you use LinkedIn during the recruiting process? Is there anything you see that job applicants really need to know about their LinkedIn profiles?
Great question. So LinkedIn is really your platform for advertising yourself. And so I would put anything that would make you stand out, whether it's your degree or your specializations or your minors, what little things you did in college to help stand out. As far as MarketStar goes, we actually are going to be having a 3-part webinar series this summer. One of those portions of the webinar series is going to be a LinkedIn professional who's going to come in and teach people how to really utilize LinkedIn. So connect with me on LinkedIn. I shared my post. We can do it again towards the end, but definitely let's connect, and I'll share that information over with Andrea as well, and she can send it out once we have that solidified. So take advantage of different opportunities like that as well.
Okay, so now one of the next comments that we had from our chat here is one of our listeners said they just had a student reach out to them about how they had a marketing internship in California that got canceled. Where is your company at in hiring interns, or has there been like a hold put on this?
Unfortunately, most of our intern positions have been put on hold. I will confirm that, and I'm happy to convey that again over to Andrea, or let's connect on LinkedIn. You've got my contact information. Whoever had asked that, I'm more than happy to try to help out there and see if we can't find something that could be a potential fit, but I'll confirm that for you guys.
Okay, so going back to some of the stuff that you talked about during your introduction, you mentioned your analytical skills. Were there other skills that helped you enter the business world, or were you intimidated because you were a humanities major? From the perspective of a recruiter, how can we market the skills that we've learned with our humanities degree?
Oh, great question. Yes, I was terrified. I felt overwhelmed for sure, kind of going in, but I shouldn't have. As a history major, what did I learn? I learned how to effectively communicate. I learned how to do research and how to convey that information into a presentable format and how to argue my case. I learned how to be extremely analytical, as mentioned. There's a lot of great skill sets that you get from being a humanities or social sciences major. And so you kind of got to look at it as far as what does this job want and how can I advertise myself that way. So the one piece of advice that I always give people is don't just send a generic resume over for every job that you apply to. Tailor your resume for that job. I know it takes a little bit more time, but if you're able to do that, then you can highlight your specific skill sets that you have gained through your university or through previous jobs, and you can really present that in a way that helps recruiters like myself see, oh, this person knows what the job is about, and two, they've advertised themselves in a way that shows that skill set.
Great. Okay, here's another one for you. So you mentioned your first job that you got. What is the importance of that first terrible job? What did you look did you decide it was time to move on from that?
Oh man, I decided like 2 weeks in that it was time to move on. But there was some really good things that I learned from it, and I'm really grateful that I did do it. One, it just helped me get into the business world in general. I know it was kind of unconventional. It wasn't necessarily business, but just being in that sales environment really helped me get a better understanding of what it took to be a professional in the working environment. So there was a lot of really good skill sets that I was able to better develop. I had never sold anything in my life before, and so it just really helped me figure out how to present myself better. What I found out is people don't really, I mean, obviously they're going to care somewhat about the product, but you're really selling yourself as a salesman or saleswoman. And so I really just learned how to present myself and how to have confidence in that. And so there's a lot of really good things that came from it. But it did help me kind of springboard into that Goldman Sachs job as well. So like I said, you kind of got to take what you have and make the best of it, and whatever job that is, springboard it into the next opportunity.
So kind of along those lines then, what gives you the courage to look for a new job when the one you have no longer suits your passion? Or how do you weigh the need for experience against your need for fulfillment?
Oh, good question. So I face that a lot at Zag. So working in the accounting department as that analyst role, I was really comfortable and I had a good team, loved my boss, teammates were great, but there was just a lack of passion behind it. And my personality is I need to be happy with, being in my job and in my career. And I just knew that it wasn't going to work out long term for me in that role. And I didn't want to be in accounting forever, even though I was good at it. And so, yeah, it was a little bit scary to kind of like move away from a really good job and move away from comfort. But one thing that you really got to do in the working environment, working field is figure out what you want to become and what is going to be your passion and what's going to drive you, and then do everything you can to work towards that. So I knew that, I didn't have the skill sets, or I shouldn't say skill set, but the experience needed to get into HR and recruiting. And so I knew that I had to do something about that. And so I took the steps, got a master's degree in HR, took on additional responsibility, helping out with the recruiting at Zag. Even though I had a full-time job already and there's plenty of responsibilities to go around, it made me even busier and more stressed, but I knew that it was going to pay off in the long run.
Great. Thank you so much for answering those. I think that's all the questions we've had over here on the chat side.
Great questions, everybody.
Thank you so much, London, for taking us through those. Joe and Sam, before I move on to closing us out and telling people about a few other upcoming events, Joe, do you have anything else you want to ask Sam?
No, I think that was really great. Sam, thanks so much for telling us, your stories about the recruiting. I guess there's one thing when you're telling that story about your success story there that I thought was really interesting, because it really is, the people that was just somebody who, maybe, like you said, was like a neighbor, somebody who's reaching out, but those are the ones that really get the, people who actually know you and who know your skills, but also are invested in you. Those are the people who are going to help you find great positions out there. So, yeah, thanks for that story there, Sam, and as well as just all your experience. It's great to see what people on the front lines, if you will, what they're looking at for our students and what kind of skills that they want. So thanks so much for being with us here, Sam.
Yeah, happy to join. Thank you for inviting me. This was great. Like I said, let's connect. Anybody who wants to even just get some career advice or some resume advice or anything like that, let's connect. I just want to be here to help you guys out as much as possible.
And Sam, we really do appreciate your willingness to let students reach out to you. And like you said, to do what you're telling them to do, which is to network and to use those resources that are available to them and not be afraid to put themselves out there and try to get good advice in getting a new first job. So we'll go back to your contact information slide here in a moment. I just want to take a moment again to thank you so much, Sam, for giving us your time today. I want to thank everyone who listened and was part of the conversation and asked questions. And I do want to remind folks listening that CHaSS and Career Services is going to continue hosting these online events throughout the summer and likely into the fall. Really, the way we're looking at things, it looks like our content might be online for some time. So I hope you'll keep tuning in. And as a reminder, if you're ever not able to listen to the entire conversation, or you want to go back and listen to something that someone said, or you want to tell your friends about it and send it to them, we are recording these conversations and we do post them on the CHaSS Alumni Series website after the fact, so you can always go back and reference them there. Just to show you a few things that are taking place next week, we will have Zach Ames, who is a graduate of our program in sociology. He is the current Regional Leadership and Talent Manager for Bloomberg. He works specifically for their Singapore division. For that reason, we will be talking to Zach at 8 a.m. We know that's early for some of our listeners, but again, we will be recording that conversation if you're not a morning person. But Zach graduated in 2008, and so he very much had to find a job during a period of economic crisis and downturn. And so he's going to talk to us a bit about staying resilient during a difficult time to find a job. And then on May 14th, we'll be speaking with Paige Frame. She is the president of McKinnon Mahulern, and she specifically, that's a company that does a lot of editing and content creation for companies who want to show off their writing or market themselves effectively through their writing. And most of her employees already work remote. So she is an expert at working remotely and was an expert even before this crisis started. So she's going to give us some tips on how to do that effectively, or how to think about getting a position that involves remote work. And then I'll just, close with my contact information as well as Joe Banks' contact information. Again, Joe Banks is our career coach in Utah State University Career Services. So he's another great resource for any students listening and trying to find a job right now. Don't forget that Career Services is accessible to current students as well as alumni. So if you've graduated from Utah State and you're starting your job search, or you're looking to change jobs, you can always rely on Career Services. So I want to thank the College of Humanities and Social Sciences. I am going to stop sharing my screen so that we can go back, hopefully. There we go. We should be able to see now Sam's contact info. So again, if you want to get in touch with Sam Jaggi, he had great advice for you today. And it's wonderful of you, Sam, again, to put yourself out there and let students reach out to you for career advice or specific questions about MarketStar. And it's exciting to hear that MarketStar is going to be coming to Logan. And we hope that you'll stay in touch with us as those things occur.
You bet. Happy to be here with you guys. Thank you for inviting me. Like I said, happy to work with anybody who has additional questions or even wants to explore MarketStar as a career opportunity.
Excellent. Well, thank you again, Sam. Thank you to my co-hosts, Joseph and London, and we hope to see everyone next week. And thanks for tuning in today. We really appreciate it.